Here we are all alive, and maybe one of the most important things is to think a little bit about our experience of being alive. We're, of course, in the middle of our life. Events are happening all the time. Thoughts are coming, feelings, sensations. We all have many plans, and of course we have memories as well. A whole construction out of which we try to make sense of what's going on. Sometimes our hopes are fulfilled, sometimes they're not fulfilled. Well, let's try to see a little bit more how to have some space and a freer sense of movement within this process. Because our life is already in process. Things are going on, moment to moment, some stimuli is coming from outside or from inside, and in the midst of this process, there's a kind of pressure that can build up inside us. A sense of, I should be achieving more, I should be getting more, I see what other people get, I see all the things that I've tried and haven't worked out. So our life is both an immediacy of what's going on, but also a storyline that runs inside ourselves. This storyline is sometimes rather harsh, rather persecutory, and we can only do our best. Is that really all? Let's maybe look at the basis. Here we are, alive. What does it mean to be alive? Essentially, something is happening. We have our body, which has eyes, ears, nose, mouth, and the wonderful texture of our skin. Moment by moment, sensation and experience, the raw data of life is occurring for us. It's occurring because we're alive. If we've ever been with a corpse, with a dead person, we see that their senses have closed. Nothing more is happening for them. So what is the difference between life and death? When we're alive, something happens, it happens to someone. It happens to me, it happens to you. What is this aliveness? It's a presence. I know I am alive. How do I know I'm alive? Because things happen to me. That seems obvious, but who is the one that the things happen to? Who is this one that I call myself? I can tell you about myself, I can tell you where I'm from, the kind of things I like to eat, the kind of work I do, but this is essentially to share a story, and we all have many, many stories we can tell about ourselves. If we try to look underneath the story or through the story, moment by moment, there is a felt sense, almost intangible, ungraspable, of being alive. I exist. But what do I exist as? Sometimes I'm happy, sometimes I'm sad, sometimes I'm thirsty, sometimes I'm hungry. Each of these experiences, in the moment of experiencing it, seems completely real, completely true. It's the whole of my universe, and then it's gone. What seemed to be me was arising for me due to causes and circumstances. If it's a hot day like today, I start to get thirsty. Why am I thirsty? Which is an experience I am having. Oh, because of the sunshine. When it's hot, I get thirsty more quickly than when it's cold. That is to say, my personal experience, which appears to be something in me defining how I am thirsty, is dependent on events outside and inside. When it's hot, the body starts to sweat, it's draining the moisture from the body, and so thirst arises. What seems to be me as something internal, definitive of who I am, is actually an interplay of many relational forces. Events arise and they pass. Experiences arise and they pass. And yet, there is a continuity of being. I'm still me through all these different experiences. So what is this me-ness of me? If the content of my mind, the content of my experience, the feelings in my body, the hopes and fears that arise, the thoughts, the analysis of am I doing okay, am I not doing okay? If we see all of these as a movement, as a sequence, a chain of events in time, still there seems to be a continuity of I, me, myself, which continues. What is this made of? It's difficult to see. Now, why should it be difficult to see who I am if I'm me? I can hold up my hand, I can look at my hand. That's not so difficult to understand. It's not so difficult to make sense of. Something is there. I can see my feet, I can see my clothes, I can see the houses, I can see people. Do I see myself in the same way? I construct an idea, I am like this, I am like that. But if we just pause for a moment and observe the function as it arises and passes, the feeling tone of being happy, the feeling tone of being sad, these temporary events are always passing. And yet, I am here. The function of meditation is simply to give us more time to experience the movement of experience, the movement of events, and the stillness of the one who is present. Our own root nature or basic presence, basic capacity of existence is not something we can grasp or define or determine. It doesn't mean it doesn't exist at all. That simply means it doesn't exist as a thing. Everything we say about ourselves is true and untrue. If I say I'm thirsty, well, I'm not always thirsty. If I say I'm from Scotland, that may be true, but I don't live in Scotland. So every kind of reference, every kind of construction relates to a set of events which is already changing. It's not fixed. Our age, of course, is changing, our health is changing, how we look is changing. What then is there in ourselves that we can grasp onto? From the point of view of Buddhism, there is nothing to grasp. But, moreover, there is no need to grasp, because when you grasp something, you always grasp what is left. A bit like trying to grasp a snake and finding that it's left its skin behind. The snake has gone off and we're left with the leftover, with something which simply remains. In that way, what happened when I woke up this morning is gone. Having breakfast is gone. Now there is this moment, and even as it's arising, it's also passing. Nothing to grasp, and that's okay. If there's nothing to grasp, a lot of the work that I habitually do in trying to construct my life, to build up a safe sense of identity, is perhaps unnecessary. Why am I so busy trying to stabilize a sense of self, a sense of purpose, to give my sense a self that I'm a reasonable human being, that what I do is acceptable to other people, when every building block that it's made of is actually like a wave in the sea. The wave is there, undeniable, you see it, and then it's gone. The wave arises from the ocean and goes back into the ocean. The moments of our experience arise out of this open field and then vanish back into it. Then another wave comes. The waves never stop. But what is the depth or the spaciousness of the ocean itself? Our mind, when we relax and look at it, is not a thing. That is to say, each of us is not a thing. We are an openness, a presence, an awareness which is not resting on anything material. It's not generated by the brain. Our knowledge of the brain is a set of experiences which arise and move through the limpid clarity of the mind itself. We don't have a mind, it's not a possession, but the mind is rather the basis or the sphere within which all our experiences occurs. Our mind is not something inside us, it's not a private possession, it's not a thing which can be determined, and so it's invulnerable. Of course, our bodies are quite vulnerable. our personalities are vulnerable, that is to say, the patterns of identification that we create about ourselves, how we imagine ourselves to be, this is very vulnerable to events. Friends don't seem to like us so much, then we feel hurt. Or we have difficulties at work, we thought we had a clear sense of how our lives would unfold, and it's gone. Or suddenly we become sick and we think, how can this be me? I'm not this kind of person. This shouldn't be happening to me. I can't be me if this is happening. How? How is this possible? That shows us the way in which when we construct a self out of events, we're actually making a house of cards or making it out of sand. There is no solid essence to our sense of self. It's an illusory show which is true for the moment of its occurrence, and then it's gone. So the main function of practice, which is essentially profound relaxation and trust, as you give up the active work of constructing, to experience that everything is there already. Things are as they are. Instead of making excess effort, which in fact merely obscures the possibility of the opening of the door to see what is always there, if we stop doing that, there is then a freshness. Something is numinous, it is just there on the edge of our consciousness, but I want to understand, I want to find out what's going on. Impossible. You can't find it because you never lost it. Again, it's not a thing. The biggest transformation we can make in our life is to stop objectification, stop treating ourselves as fixed objects, and stop treating other people as fixed objects. All moments of life are movements in an ungraspable field. Although we know people, we call them our friends, perhaps we even call some people our enemies, and that seems to give a concrete, defined sense of who they are. Actually, we only have moments of shared experience. What I call myself is never alone. It's always in a context. The experience of being something in particular arises because we experience a world of many particular things. In relation to who we are, in relation to our sense of purpose and meaning in life, the more we trust the dynamic flow of existence is something to participate in, to find our way in, and that we will find our way. This way will not be determined by our hopes and fears. Whatever plans we make always have to be changed. We often feel they've gone wrong. This is because the fantasy of control, the fantasy of power, creates an internal world of thoughts, of hopes, in which we make a beautiful map which we then try to force onto circumstances. But life, like the waves in the ocean, cannot be put into a frame. You can see the children on the beach. They have a little plastic bucket and they put the sand in the bucket and they turn it upside down and they start to make structures. Sand is like earth, it can take a shape. But if you put water in a bucket and you turn it upside down, it just moves away. It's the same with our life. It's always moving away and simultaneously arriving. Here it is, here it is. So instead of trying to look at it from the inside out, if we relax, we find that what we call the object or the outside or other people and what we call ourselves are not two separate things. The field of experience is non-dual. It has no separation at all. And this is revealed as it is just by relaxing and being present. Our own creativity is the thing that generates worries, confusions, problems, sleepless nights. Allowing the energy of the mind to relax, we give it a rest from asking it to provide the meaning of life, as if we could think our way through to some defined conclusion that we could arrive at a safe place where we knew what everything meant. We've probably been doing this for many years, and where has it got us? Life slips through our fingers. Therefore, keeping our hands open is a good idea. Trying to grasp that which slips away is ridiculous. So the basic function of practice is to help us to be alive by recognizing what life is. It is the immediacy of participation in the arising of experience without planning, without controlling, trusting the dynamism, the free movement of the open ground of the mind and the open field of all that's around us, allowing this dynamism to move and pass, lifting us up, lifting us down, always with the unchanging stability of mere presence. Just here we are, we can't say what it is, but it's always there. So it's not so complicated, but we make it complicated by looking for something else. So the basic instruction is always, please take a rest.